class, we were discussing type of corrosions. And in the previous class, we have covered uniform or general attack corrosion, the galvanic or two metal corrosion, pitting corrosion, crevice corrosion, and intragranular corrosion. In today's class, we will going to discuss stress corrosion, erosion corrosion, cavitation damage, fretting corrosion, selective leaching, and hydrogen damage. And at last, we will going to discuss the prevention mechanism in detail through cathodic protection. So let us first understand what exactly the stress corrosion is. It is a type of corrosion which is resulted from the combined action of an applied tensile stress in a corrosive environment. That means if metal is in a corrosive environment and subject to a tensile load, then it results into corrosion of the metal. Some materials that are virtually inert otherwise in a particular corrosive medium become susceptible to this form of corrosion when stress is applied. This means the metal is otherwise non-corrosive in a given environment, but under the tensile load, it starts getting corroded. Small cracks form and then propagate in a direction perpendicular to the stress, resulting in the failure of the material. Failure behavior is characteristic of a brittle material, even though the metal alloy is intrinsically ductile. So, the stress corrosion leading to the brittleness in the material in a ductile system. The cracks may form at relatively low stress levels, significantly below the tensile strength. Now, this is also the impact of the corrosion. In general case, the cracks appears at the tensile load, while in this case, the crack starts forming at very low stress level, which is significantly lower than the tensile strength of the material. For example, in most stainless steels, stress corrode in solutions containing chloride ions, whereas brasses are especially vulnerable when exposed to ammonia. So, under these kind of corrosive environment, a small stress could lead to devastating effect on these category of solids. The stress that produces stress corrosion cracking need not be externally applied. This is important. Generally, when we say material is under stress, we mean that it could be an external stress applied through an external load, or it could be an internal stress, which is a residual one that results from rapid temperature changes and uneven contraction, or it may be because of two-phase alloys in which each phase has different coefficient of expansion, or a gaseous and solid corrosion products that are entrapped internally can give rise to an internal stress. So, any form of internal stress or maybe an external stress can result into stress corrosion. The next important question is how one can prevent the stress corrosion. So, the best possible way is you take the reducing or totally eliminating the stress corrosion is to lower the magnitude of the stress. Somehow, if you can either completely remove or minimize the extent at which stress is present, that is the best possible solution. This may be accomplished by reducing the external load, increasing the cross-sectional area perpendicular to the applied stress. Because if you increase the cross-sectional area, indirectly you are reducing the amount of stress that is applicable on the material. Furthermore, an appropriate heat treatment may be used to anneal out residual thermal stress. If you anneal a metal, this is the tendency that your dislocations or defects which is otherwise present in the form of stress in the material gets liberated from the material. In that way, you can eliminate the internal stress. Uh, the third possible way by which you can prevent stress corrosion is eliminate the source of the corrosion. That is, you alter the environment. I'm afraid this may not be a possibility in most of the engineering applications because environment is a parameter which is generally not in the hand of the designer. The final solution could be you change your material, change your alloy, and bring another one which is not susceptible to stress corrosion in given environment. Next in the line of discussion is erosion corrosion. As the name suggests, this kind of corrosion is because of the erosion of the product. It arises from the combined action of chemical attack and mechanical abrasion or wear as a consequence of fluid motion. All metal alloys are susceptible to erosion corrosion. It is especially harmful to alloys that passivate by forming a protective surface film. The abrasive action may erode away the film, leaving the exposed a bare metal surface. If the coating is not capable of continuously and rapidly reforming as a protective barrier, corrosion may be severe because once the protective layer is removed, that localized region becomes more susceptible to the erosion corrosion. Usually, it can be identified by surface grooves and wavings having contours that are characteristic of fluid flow. So usually you can see on the metal surface grooves or waves are being formed, which is the marked signature of erosion corrosion. Erosion corrosion is commonly found in piping, especially at bends, elbows, and abrupt changes in pipe diameter. The position where the fluid changes direction or flow suddenly becomes turbulent. Those regions of pipings are especially susceptible to these kind of erosion corrosion. The examples are propellers, turbine blades, valves, and pumps, which are frequently susceptible to this form of corrosion. What are the prevention measures that one can take? Number one of the best ways to reduce erosion corrosion is to change the design to eliminate fluid turbulence and impingement effects. If you can somehow reduce the turbulence in fluid flow, you can minimize the effect of erosion corrosion. Second one, use materials that are inherently resistant to erosion. Now, depending on other aspects of design, whether this is possible or not, you have to look into that aspect as well. Third, removal of the particulates and bubbles from the solution will lessen its ability to erode. This is important. You should try to keep your fluid uh, free from particulate matters because presence of particulate metals normally enhances the erosion rate. The eighth type of corrosion is cavitation damage. It is caused by the formation and collapse of air bubbles or vapor-filled cavities in a liquid near a metal surface. The rapidly collapsing vapor bubbles can produce localized pressure as high as 60,000 psi. It is sufficient to remove surface film, tear metal particles from the surface, resulting in increased corrosion rates and surface wear. It occurs where high velocity liquid flow and pressure changes exist. The typical examples are pump impellers and ship propellers, where high velocity liquid flow and pressure changes exist. The next in the line of discussion is fretting corrosion. It is caused at the interface of materials under load, subject to vibration and slip. So this kind of corrosion takes place when material is subject to a load, vibration and slip. The metal between the rubbing surfaces is oxidized. The oxidized film is torn and the oxide particles so formed act as abrasive. It appears as grooves or pits surrounded by the corrosion product. Tight fitting surfaces between shafts and bearings or sleeves can minimize the fretting corrosion. Next type of corrosion is selective leaching. It is the preferential removal of one element of the solid alloy by the corrosion process. You know, alloy is made up of two or more elements, and if the corrosion process somehow selectively removes one element, then it leads to the corrosive impact on the alloy. For example, dezincification of brass, leaving a spongy weak matrix of copper. This results into dissolution followed by a replating of copper while zinc remains in the solution. So in dezincification, your zinc leaves from the brass, leaving only the copper matrix, which is susceptible to higher degree of corrosion. How one can prevent this kind of corrosion? Number one can minimize this by lowering the amount of zinc present in the alloy, and in this way you can stop or minimize the dezincification. Second one is you completely alter the alloy and choose a one which is not susceptible to removal of an element of the alloy in the given corrosive environment. Third, you alter the environment itself. As explained previously, in most of the cases, this may not be a possible solution. But if that is so, you should do that. Fourth one is you provide cathodic protection by providing a sacrificial anode to your alloy, and in this way you can prevent the alloy from getting selectively leached. The 11th type or last type of corrosion that is part of our discussion is called hydrogen damage. As the name suggests, in this kind of corrosion, hydrogen plays a critical load. This results into load carrying capability of metallic component that is reduced due to the interaction with atomic or molecular hydrogen, usually in conjunction with residual or externally applied tensile stress. That means When these kind of corrosion takes place, material loses its load carrying capability, especially when it is under residual or externally applied tensile stress when it interacts with atomic or molecular hydrogen. That means in the presence of atomic or molecular hydrogen, material loses its load carrying capability. Another important term which is being frequently used is called hydrogen embrittlement. It means hydrogen damage is directly related to loss of ductility. So when metal exposed to hydrogen loses its ductility, it is called hydrogen embrittlement. Hydrogen environment embrittlement occurs during a plastic deformation of metals such as steels, stainless steels, and titanium alloys. Hydrogen stress cracking, which is brittle fracture in a ductile material such as carbon and low alloy steel. In this category of corrosion, the ductile solid undergoes a brittle failure in materials like carbon and low alloy steels. Loss in tensile ductility. This is significant reduction in elongation capability and reduction area in steel and aluminium. Next important term is called hydrogen attack. It is a high temperature mode of attack in which hydrogen enters metals such as steels and react with carbon to produce methane gas that results in formation of cracks or decarburization. The next category is called blistering. In blistering, atomic hydrogen diffuses into internal defects and precipitates as molecular hydrogen, which produces high internal pressure, resulting in local plastic deformation and blistering. How one can prevent these kind of hydrogen damages? If you want to do so, there are two preventive approaches. The first one is change the material which is susceptible to hydrogen attack, and second one is reverse hydrogen contamination, that is back it out. This is the process by which you can remove the presence of atomic or molecular hydrogen from the material. You can make metallic coating such as tin, zinc, aluminum on steel to prevent corrosion in general, or you can use inhibitors, substances that when added in relatively low concentrations to the environment decreases its corrosiveness. The third possible general approach by which you can prevent corrosion is by providing the cathodic protection. The fourth general category for corrosion prevention is non-metallic coating such as oil or paint. And last, avoid physical contact between dissimilar metals. So these are the typical 5 approaches by which you can minimize the corrosion in metals and alloys. In various corrosion types, we frequently refer to the method of cathodic protection to prevent the corrosion in a particular metal or alloy class. So how the cathodic protection works? This involves supplying electron from an external source to the metal to be protected, making it a cathode. So what we are doing in cathodic protection is we are electrically connecting the material whom we want to protect from corrosion, in a way the material become itself a cathode. The process of galvanizing is simply one in which a layer of zinc is applied to the surface of steel by hot dipping, the type of sacrificial protection, where zinc acts as the sacrificing layer which protects the steel from undergoing the corrosion. High conductivity backfill material provides good electrical contact between the anode and the surrounding soil. A current path exists between the cathode and anode through the intervening soil, completing the electrical circuit. Cathodic protection is especially useful in preventing corrosion of water heaters, underground tanks and pipes, and the marine equipments. So the basic idea is make the material whom you want to protect in the given diagram, maybe a tank, connect it electrically to another material that is acting as the sacrificial anode. You must have seen large water pipelines adjacent to highways carrying the drinking water. If you have closely monitored those pipes at regular periodic interval, you see a ring-like structure surrounding the steel pipe. That ring-like structure which is surrounding the steel pipe is basically a magnesium anode which is acting as a sacrificial material, and it prevents the corrosion of the steel pipe. So in general, your basic goal is to protect the metal, and while doing so, you avoid the localized corrosion. So what one can do to meet this goal? The first one is give preference to the noble metals. Try to use metals which are novel in your design as far as possible, which minimizes the susceptibility of your design from corrosion. Second one, avoid electrical and physical contacts between metals with very different electrode potential. That means avoid formation of galvanic couple. If it is unavoidable, try to choose materials with least electrode potential difference, which will minimize your rate of corrosion. If dissimilar metals are in contact, make sure that the anodic metal has larger surface area to volume ratio. If you increase the surface area of the anode, indirectly you are minimizing your rate of corrosion. Fourth, in case of microstructural level galvanic couple, that is if your material under consideration is alloy, try to use a coarse microstructure to reduce the number of galvanic cells formed. We have understood this previously. If you have coarse microstructure, that is your microstructure is made up of larger size grains, it minimizes the number of galvanic cells within the alloys, and in that way you can minimize again the rate of corrosion. The fifth possibility is modifies the base metal by alloying it in a way the alloy is non-corrosive in given environment. The sixth possibility is provide surface protection by various means. The most common one is to paint the surface, or you can use various protective films for this purpose. The seventh possibility is modify the fulfill in contact with the metal A remove a cathodic reactant, for example, water, or B, add inhibitors which form a protective layer. So there are two ways to do it. Either you remove the cathodic reactant in your design environment, or add inhibitors, which are chemicals especially designed which minimizes the material's susceptibility to corrosion in a given environment. The eighth possibility is provide cathodic protection by using a sacrificial anode. The anode gets corroded and prevents the cathode from undergoing corrosion. So here is the summary. What we have understood is stress corrosion is due to the more tensile stress in corrosive environment. Erosion corrosion is caused by fluid flow and mechanical abrasion. Cavitation damage is caused by air bubbles near the metal surface. In fretting corrosion, it is caused by the movement of loose mechanical parts. The removal of zinc from the brass is called dezincification. Hydrogen damage is caused by atomic or molecular hydrogen. And cathodic protection is supply of extra electrons to the anode to make the cathode prevent from undergoing corrosion.